Coldwell Banker has been sued and is alleged to have poached real estate agents from a competing real estate brokerage. So let's investigate. Let's see what we have here. So this article is courtesy of the Orange County Register. All right, so First Team, that's the name of the team. That's the name of the brokerage. First Team Brokerage. Trial accuses Coldwell Banker of thievery over agent defection. So First Team is not happy that Coldwell Banker gained a ton of real estate agents. Now, there are some nuances here that we're going to discuss. Some of them are a little bit more straightforward than others, but that's why we are here. So a lawsuit by First Team, again, is the name of the brokerage, accuses Coldwell Banker of luring top managers and 80 agents from the Southern California's largest independent real estate brokerage. So we're talking about somebody that has some bigger pockets. It's not somebody that is a slouch, but also we're talking about a lot of real estate agents all together. So First Team has over 2,000 agents, if I remember correctly. And of course, we know Coldwell Banker, I think at this point they have nearly 60,000 agents. So we're talking about some bigger brokerages. It's beyond just a little slap fight. This is the real deal now. This is a lawsuit that began years ago. So let's see if we can get this without crashing real quick. All right, so let's see, scroll down. Here we go. Now, this is a lawsuit that has been filed years ago, in 2000 and I want to say it was like 7 years ago. And it is just now, in fact, today, it is just now getting to court. So that'll tell you a lot. So a trial between rival real estate brokerages is set to begin Tuesday, January 16th, with one firm accusing the other of staging a clandestine campaign to poach agents, managers, and employees, and gigabits of protected information. So there's two main components to this particular lawsuit. One is the agent's gone, to another brokerage, so getting recruited away. But then there's the other confidential information, the information that the First Team brokerage deems to be their trade secrets per se. So again, those are the two main claims here. First Team Real Estate, Southern California's largest independent broker, maintains that management from Coldwell Banker stole 4 of its most important managers, productive managers, and 80 of its agents from offices in Newport Beach, Huntington Beach, and Mission Viejo over a 2-year period. So they're essentially saying that, hey, Coldwell Banker, you came and got our most productive managers. They're essentially talking about their production managers, the individuals that have relationships with a ton of other real estate agents. So they're the ones that are the keys here, the individuals that really have a lot of pull, really build that relationship, help those agents get into production, are in the trenches day to day. So there's a lot of relationship capital that they have. And if they were to go to another brokerage, then they're prime candidates to bring some people with them, right? So that was the key thing that was being alleged here. In 2015, Coldwell Banker devised a national business strategy. If you can't beat them, steal from them, First Team's lawsuit said. That one seems a little bit weird. If you can't beat them, steal from them. That I could see why First Team would say that. I could see why they would allege that. But again, when we're talking about the scoreboard, when we're talking about who's beating who, again, I'm really not trying to disparage First Team here. But I mean, there's a big difference between 2,000 agents, which is what First Team, the brokerage, has, versus 56,000 agents, which is what Coldwell Banker has. So, but let's continue. Coldwell used local brokerages such as Coldwell Southern California. So remember, Coldwell Banker is a franchise model. So every office out there is operated based off of mostly different franchisors. Now there might be some franchisors that have certain regions, multiple offices, but for the most part, we're talking about independent franchises. So this is what they're referencing here. Coldwell Southern California is the franchise office to target branch office managers of independent real estate brokerages and entice them to join local Coldwell. That in and of itself, I don't see anything wrong with that. Like, the goal is to recruit. The goal is to grow the brokerage. The goal is to get as many agents through the door. So there's nothing wrong with that. But Coldwell did not want just managers. Coldwell paid managers handsomely for groups of agents, confidential information, trade secrets, and listings. So what they really have to attach to this particular lawsuit, in my opinion, from the way that I see it and know the industry, is that last part, the confidential information, trade secrets, and listings. There's nothing wrong with hiring somebody and also giving some incentives. In fact, Coldwell Banker actually pays up front for a lot of top producers so they can come over. Now, the trade-off is if I pay you $8,000, $10,000, $20,000 agent, then I expect you to be here a year, 2 years, 3 years to pay that off. And if you were to leave the brokerage, then I expect you to give me my money back. That's essentially how a lot of the contracts that Coldwell Banker cuts, that's how it works. So there's nothing wrong with that. Again, the big thing that they're having to tie into this particular lawsuit is this whole confidential information, trade secrets, and listings. So let's keep going. Here's the data. 47-year-old brokerage has 2,000 agents in 30 offices. Again, that's a huge office. That's a huge brokerage. I'm not trying to disparage that, but when we're talking about sizes in the event that size matters, you're looking at the difference here between the two brokerages, one being 2,000 agents, the other one is 56,000. In 2000, so this is how slow things have been going. In September 2015, Coldwell Banker publicized news that two top first team managers, so essentially those individuals that were being poached away according to them, two first team managers in Newport Beach had defected a Coldwell Banker residential brokerage along with 45 other Newport Beach agents. So that's when they're alleging here in the span of 2 years that 80 plus agents ended up defecting over. And essentially what they were talking about here, these lines are a little bit off. So essentially it all amounts to this, and in the form of the what they're beyond what they're alleging, but what they lost, the money that they're out just from this particular instance happening. We're not talking about the future earnings, but how they were materially affected. It amounts to $400,000 to $500,000 in missed commission because of the book of business being transferred over to Coldwell Banker. That's what they're essentially alleging. All right. Now, defections and mass moves from one brokerage to another are commonplace in the industry. Again, we know that. And top producers often move to brokerages offering them more compensation, but the lawsuit maintained that Coldwell Banker went beyond normal practice. So this is where they have to go and really seek some actual damages, or really see something that is actually illegal or something that is materially wrong, because again, you're in the marketplace to compete for agents. That's what every single brokerage on the face of this planet is doing. So they have to go above and beyond that to show some actual damages, some malice, something that's actually lawfully wrong, right? So never had the residential real estate industry face such large-scale systematic thievery of agents. We're talking about 80 agents, folks. Confidential information, trade secrets, and listings. So again, they have to add that confidential information, trade secrets, and listings, according to First Team's lawsuit. Now, I know it sounds like I'm kind of leaning towards the side, because in reality, I kind of am. I have no affiliation with Coldwell Banker or anything like that. I've lost some agents myself to Coldwell Banker that I have tried to bring onto my real estate group. But again, as I see it right here, I don't necessarily see what the smoking gun is, or at least I haven't read it in this article and in the lawsuit that I was reviewing. So it's going to be interesting to see how the court goes. Now, First Team also sued the 3X managers. This is a point that I want to get into because I think it's important. I have some previous experience from my previous career to speak to this. So First Team also sued 3X managers. We're going to call them, these are all tough names. So we're going to call it Debbie, Farshid, and Allen. We're going to call them for breach of contract, saying they violated employment agreements to not disclose confidential company information or recruit First Team employees for 2 years. So this is part of those types of contracts that they sign. And it sounds like these were more W-2 positions, or positions that went above and beyond the 1099, at least from if they were managers in this respect. If they were actively selling, then it might be a 1099. So I'm not necessarily sure what that employment agreement was. And I'm also, full disclosure, I am not in California, so I'm in Texas. So the way that employees are handled here, or the way that the labor unions are different. So anything there is going to be a little bit different. So the ex-managers that were sued, so they were sued personally, but so was Coldwell Banker. So these individuals were sued personally, so they have to have their own attorney. Filed a countersuit arguing that non-solicitation provisions banning them from recruiting first-team employees was unlawful. So essentially, this is a case of non-competing. So non-solicitation is going and recruiting agents in this particular instance. Non-competing, you could see that as taking your talents and not spinning up your own brokerage. So they're technically different, non-solicitation, non-compete, but when it comes to enforceability, they're both quite challenging. So I remember in my whenever we would do contracts back in my healthcare days, we had large sales organizations that would market our medication. We had compounding medication. We would hire sales forces at a time. Some sales groups were 5 sales team members. Some were individuals. Some had 10, 20, 30 individuals that were sales organizations, so sales groups that would go and market to doctors to get them to prescribe our medications. So since we were a compounding pharmacy, our formulary wasn't covered by the Aetnas, the Blue Cross Blue Shields, the United Healthcare. Like, it wasn't covered by those. So a lot of it had to do with private pay. So for us, we needed to deploy a good amount of salespeople and incentivize them adequately enough to get us into the doctor's offices. So we're distributing medication all across 50 states. Why do I say all that? Well, when it came to contract time, our attorneys, what was that attorney group? I think our attorneys were I know they were out of Arizona, and I think it was a Polsinelli. It's a massive real attorney office, a Polsinelli group, I think. They had an office in Dallas, Phoenix, New York, everywhere. But anyway, the way that we would draft up the contracts was specifically, hey, when we were drafting up these contracts, we would, obviously favor them to our position. If you were to leave us, then you can't compete with us, you can't take your book of business, all the other stuff. However, we knew full well that those types of contracts were going to be extremely hard to, at least that clause, not the entire contract, but at least that clause was going to be extremely hard to enforce, because you can't keep somebody from making a living. You can't keep somebody from, you can't create a law. You can't create something in your contract that's going to keep somebody from having a livelihood. Now, that's not what we were doing in our particular, agreements and contracts, but just to give you an idea, this was the type of legal advice that we were getting, and they were charging quite handsomely to write out contracts for us. So just wanted to share a little bit about that, the non-solicitation, the non-compete, all that type of stuff, especially when you're talking about 1099 and this type of work, whether it's real estate or any type of sales. It's really challenging to enforce. So I do foresee this Debbie, Farshad, and Alan doing quite well in terms of their defense. But remember, they're paying attorneys out of their own pocket. The brokers, Coldwell Banker, they have their own attorneys. They're not going to represent both. It's a conflict of interest. So I remember when we would get lawsuits, if you will. It sounds like I've been in trouble a lot, right? But trust me, in healthcare, even if you're doing it right, you're spending over $100,000 in legal fees. But whenever we get sued either by the FDA, the DEA, any any healthcare organization, whatever, we would each have to get our own attorney. So it was, we'd have to get the company would have to have its own attorney. Ourselves as an individual would have to get our own legal representation. It was a whole mess. It was just bad. So as a quick little reset there, I was a chief operating officer of a network of compounding pharmacies, so that's why I would have to get legal representation for myself when we needed to get whenever we needed to get some defense, if you will. And I don't know what's going on with these little stars here, but they're a little bit off, aren't they? Anyway, so I do remember the points that I wanted to cover here. So here is something I wanted to share. So while so this is a big part of it. She allegedly coached. So talking about, I believe it's Debbie. Yeah, Debbie allegedly coached agents in how to transfer their listings to Coldwell Banker by canceling first team listing agreements and signing the clients up with their new employer, the lawsuit said. So essentially, it's the contracts are coming through the front door, and allegedly, this manager was sending them out the back. So that would be kind of pretty simple to prove. That would not be that challenging to prove if that did indeed happen, and I do think that would be problematic. Within days of leaving first team, the lawsuit said Lewandowski held a party for first team agents attended by Jamie Duran, then president of Coldwell Bankers Orange County. So the franchise there, San Diego and Desert Community Operations, the lawsuit said. A sign-up sheet allegedly was passed around during the party for agents willing to follow Lewandowski to Coldwell Banker. So it was a recruiting party, according to these folks. Now, that's the extent of it. This again it's a lawsuit between first team and first team suing Coldwell Banker for luring top managers and 80 agents from the brokerage. Now, this has been an ongoing thing that's been going on for over 6 years. It's just now getting to trial. Of course, this has been expensive on all fronts. So I'll keep you updated. Let's see what ends up happening. This has been a long time in the making, but we have a case where now they will have a day in court. So let's see how this jury finds, or I'm sorry, how this lawsuit ends up going. And if you have any questions, please feel free to let me know in the comment section down below. Outside of that, I'll talk to you tomorrow.